Good afternoon. It's a Trigger. Rich Bontrigger back with you once again, 2 p.m. with the Trigger, Monday through Fridays. And we're always here every day to help you shine on camera, shine on stage. So it helps amplify you and your brand authority, the message that you have for people, the message that people need to hear. We help you amplify that better so you become seen and known as a go to expert in your industry. And that's one of the things we love to do here at 2 p.m. Bring on other people, let them shine brighter. And we are so excited that next week we are finally getting ready to go back into another summit, a 5-day summit. And it's the Beyond Trauma Summit. It starts Monday, goes through Friday the 10th. Shannon Peel and Peel Marketing is leading the charge. I get the honor to come on board and host and party with them and interview and have a great time with them. It's going to be great. And yes, I did say party. We're talking about trauma. I know it bugs some people. It's very personal, intimate, messy, but we are going to have a great time because we're going to talk about beyond the trauma. How do you lift up? How do you move on? How do you put the pieces back together? And today we've got one of those subject matters that you probably don't want to hear about, but you need to hear about. Okay, let's be honest about that. And so we're going to bring on a great guest. Margaret Dennis is with me. Good afternoon, Margaret. How's it going?
Good. Thanks, Rich. Nice to be here.
You specialize in end of life. You're helping people to get pieces in place. And your question is, why procrastinate the end of life plans, right?
No, no, I actually specialize in grief. I'm the grief
Oh,
person. Yeah, I
ah,
do all the grief. So we all work together though. Like if I have worked with people who are working towards end of life and things like that as well. But no, I do I'm a life coach and I specialize in helping people find joy after they've gone through trauma and grief. So, yeah, that's what I do. And it's so rewarding actually to be in that space to work with people who have gone through trauma and um, who are who've experienced grief but want to move forward, right? They're ready to move forward. They're ready to take that step. They're ready to find out what's next for them, right? Like living in a it's very, very hard when you can get caught up in the trauma and then you want to start taking those steps forward and you want to start taking your life back, right? You want to start finding some more joy. And that's really hard because there's so many emotions that go along with that.
so how do you take it back? Because trauma is like slamming on the brakes, like hitting the
Hmm.
walls, and all of a sudden you realize nothing's the same for a while. So how do you
Hmm.
help them put those pieces back together?
So a lot of what I do is helping them actually face the trauma. Because a lot of what happens is when you have trauma, your reaction, if it's really, really catastrophic, is to just bury it and not deal with it because it can be really overwhelming and overpowering. And so that's really makes us feel really vulnerable and it's scary. And so what I do is I help them sort of not revisit it, but let's look at the emotions attached to it, right? I do a lot of emotional work. So maybe there was like anger and sadness and shame and guilt. So let's get down to that. Let's feel that. Let's get rid of that. And then let's talk about the grief because when you have trauma, you always have grief. When you have grief, you don't always have trauma, but when you have trauma, you always have grief. So, and those are two different pieces of the
Oh
puzzle.
yeah.
And if you don't deal with the trauma, you cannot deal with the grief. So, what I do is I don't do deep diving into the trauma. There's some really amazing people who dive into the trauma. I help people when they're they're ready to move on. So we will touch on it a bit to make sure that that's been settled and it's not it's hard when you've got an emotional connection to something like a traumatic event. You will
Hmm.
always feel it, like there will always be a part of it that's stored in your body. But what I do is I help you release as many of the emotions as we can so that we can work through the grief process and again feel the grief, let it out, and figure out those steps to move forward. And when you're able to release those emotions, you make space for other emotions like joy and happiness to come in.
So I would think people often are asking, questioning, am I allowed to feel this? Am I allowed to release it? Where does it go when I really are those some of the common questions you kind of get into then?
Yeah, people are like, "Well, why do I if I don't wanna feel it?" I'm like, "Well, then you're always going to have it in your body, right?" And then when you don't feel it and you don't release it, what happens is all these experiences, every little one builds up over time. and it becomes a pressure cooker, and all of a sudden it comes out in ways that you weren't expecting. Like you're really irritated, you snap, you have a breakdown in the middle of the office for unknown reasons, right? Like, so your body will try and release the emotions if you don't actually do it yourself. And so by actually consciously and intentionally going into that, and um and focusing on the emotions, it releases space. And when I say releases space, a lot of my clients, even myself, I've gone through some of the same processes. It makes you feel lighter. It when it says it opens up the space, it means that there's space then to feel more. And I've had clients who've said, I don't know how to feel joy. I don't know what that is, right? And so it's, how do you help them explore that? And as you dig deeper, a lot of it is, let's figure out what's behind all of that first.
Well, do you almost have to give them permission to re-embrace joy?
100%.
Do you almost have to say, "It's okay. No one's gonna
Mhm.
smack you on the head, stop you. We actually want you to experience joy," but in their mind, their head, their heart, it's hard to sit back into a joy-filled life?
100%. A lot of people, when you talk about feeling joy again, they start to feel guilty. Why should I be able to feel joy if my loved one has passed, or, something traumatic has happened? How come I deserve to feel joy? Right. And there's that sense of self-worth and that idea that maybe um they're not supposed to be happy. But that's so you can't change the past, but you can change your future. You have control of your future. And why wouldn't you want to live a happy life? And why wouldn't you want to try and embrace the joy? But a lot of people cling to the grief and the emotions around the trauma because it's still a connection to whatever they lost.
So
And
I would
so,
think
yeah.
yours is a long, messy journey. I would
Mhm.
think because there's starting and stopping in all that, right? There's great progress, and then one day they wake up and go,
Mhm.
I don't know if I wanna really do this anymore," right?
Well, we kind of hit that close to the beginning, to be honest, because once we
Oh,
start diving into it and they see the benefit of releasing, as long as they're open to it and open to doing the work, as long they're going to start to see the benefits of releasing the emotion fairly quickly. Now, it doesn't mean that, week 1 is okay and week 2 is woohoo. It is a process, but every week is stepping you more and more forward towards where you wanna be, but you actually have to want to get there too. And as the emotions come up, as they feel maybe guilty or, um, hesitant about moving that way, then we work through those feelings as well. Why do you feel guilty? Why do you feel hesitant? What is it? And so we address all of the emotions along the way.
do you ever, through this process, helping them find the joy, helping them breathe life back in again, I would kinda guess it is.
Mhm,
Do you ever bump into hidden trauma that's never been released, that they start going, all of a sudden something else comes out and like,
mhm.
"There's still something here, folks."
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I've had clients who've remembered things from their childhood that they had no idea that it happened. Now they wouldn't have, and for some of them, it hasn't been really big traumas, but at the age that it happened, it seemed like a big trauma. Right? Like being put aside from a parent or not acknowledged from a parent, or, being bullied as a child. Well, often people remember being bullied, but they don't remember the full emotional impact that it had. So a lot of what happens is when I take people into, like, when we have them close their eyes and they go down into their body, and it's
Mhm.
actually a process called profound impact coaching. I trained under Ryan Matthew. I got certified with him last year, and it was amazing because you get out of your thoughts and into your emotions and into your body. And when you close your eyes and you look within, it is amazing what comes up for people, and things that they weren't even aware of. They'll be like, "I'm really, really angry." I'm like, "Okay, well, feel the anger, feel the anger." And as they feel the anger, because the intensity of the emotion will
Yeah.
really only last maybe 90 seconds. And what happens is they feel the anger, and all of a sudden the anger lifts up, and you're like, "Okay, well, what else is there?" Right? "Well, I'm sad." "Okay, well, then let's feel the sadness." And then what's under the sadness? "Oh, I feel really guilty." And then, you start digging the layers, right? And through that awareness, it doesn't mean that it disappears just like that, but it does mean that that awareness clears the space for things to, and then you choose what to do with the awareness, right? I can help you find it, but
Well, that was
you
gonna be my
get to
next question.
choose.
What
Yeah.
what do they do with it? So that's really up for them to figure out more
That's
or
really
less?
up for them to figure out. It's like, if I understand that I'm feeling guilty, okay, well, what do I wanna do with that? Like, why would I be feeling guilty? Do I still need to be feeling guilty about this? Is this and it's really the understanding, because they find that if you can get down to the bottom layer of why you're feeling the way you feel, it changes how it's expressed, right? And all of a sudden you're not expressing it as anger, you're feeling the guilt that you've really felt, and that actually is a freedom in and of itself, where you're like, wow, okay, I didn't know that. So
So I've got a couple more questions. I just want to remind everybody the
mhm,
QR code is right here again. Join this event. A lot of amazing speakers. We realize trauma's real, very real. Trauma is traumatic, long lasting, but we're going to move beyond trauma. We're going to help you look and hear from a lot of great experts next week,
mhm,
Monday the 6th through Friday the 10th. An amazing bunch of speakers will be sharing, interacting. It's tools for your utility belt for life. It's going to help you hear things, see things completely differently, and as we're hearing right now, give you hope to
mhm.
move to a new point in line. I am curious here, though. This sounds like this is a draining job for you because you're in the mud, in the middle,
Mhm.
bringing the joy, encouraging, listening, reflecting so much. What are you like at the end of this process? Does it take a toll from you as well?
Originally, when I started in it, yes, I try really hard not to take on any of the emotions that are out there as well. And as a
Yeah.
coach, you really have to sit in a neutral space. I think for me, it's just prepping before I go into a session, just grounding myself and reminding myself that I am there for them. This is their space. This is their emotions. This is their gig, pretty much. And I'm the one that's there to help them move through it. And I can't do that when I'm caught up in the emotion, right? I can't do that when I'm feeling the emotion with them, and that doesn't serve them at all, because if I'm in the emotion with them, I can't ask the questions that they need to be asked. So for me, it's a lot of grounding and just refocusing and really focusing on the client. And then at the end of the session, I always make sure I've got at least half an hour to an hour before another session, so that I can go for a walk and I can take a bit of a break and clear my head and process what they've done as well, and just give myself that grace to be able to step in again to the next for the next client and be equally as present.
That's marvelous. That's great for people to know. So you're healthy, you're strong for each person that you're in to step
Mhm.
into and serve and help. Without giving it all away, what are a couple little things next week we're going to hear, we're going to learn from you as you step up to the microphone and share with us?
You might hear a little bit about how I got where I got to be here. You will hear a little bit more in depth about what the process is after we've, tackled the trauma and the grief, to take them further into the idea of joy. Yeah, we'll tackle a little bit more in depth about what we talked about today too.
What is one step today? Just one simple step for people right now that are on the cusp of needing that. Here's something to breathe a little
Hmm.
life into them. What's one little simple thing you can say to move joy back in their world just a little bit today?
That they're worth it. That it's worth it for you to have joy.
Margaret Dennis, we're gonna see you next week. We're gonna have a great time, talk further. Thanks for dropping by at 2 p.m. with the trigger here today. We're gonna save all the goodness for next week. We're gonna
Hmm.
save it.
That'd be good.
2 p.m. with the trigger. And again, Monday through Friday, we are here and we will be live for that summit. We're going to be working with Shannon Peel and her team to put on an amazing summit, the Beyond Trauma Summit. And it's going to be Monday through Friday. Here's the tickets right here. Grab your phone right now, hit that. It's only $25. You are chocked full of amazing things. You will be getting yourself the live presentations, panel discussions, access to those as well, networking opportunities. You're going to get the replay of all the different presentations. If you can't make it throughout the week, we understand that. We got you covered. And you're also going to get a copy of a digital book. The digital book value is full of before, during the summit, after the summit. It's filled with everything you need to know and more about Beyond Trauma. And it's all for $25. We're doing a half price sale now. Once we get into the summit, the price is going to go up. And the digital book that we have for you is over almost a $50 value right there. So come and join us next week. We'd love to have you join. You're going to hear from Margaret, from others. And I'm going to be speaking, by the way, on laughter and caregiving and the value and the importance of having a good sense of humor while you deal with the trauma. That's going to do it for today. I'm Rich Bontrager, The Trigger. We'll be back Monday, 2 p.m. with The Trigger. And we go live every day at 2 p.m. on different streaming platforms. Until then, have a great